Friends, this is NJ, your host on this channel. So we have reached the last part of our discussion on the origin of the heartline from different points. A quick recap of all what we have studied so far. What does heartline, this topmost major line marked on our palm, represent? The scope of the heartline can be understood on the basis of three principles. First is the physical aspect. This line tells about the physical condition of the heart. Second is the psychological aspect. This line tells about how you relate to others on an emotional level, your innermost feelings. And third is the spiritual aspect. This line also tells about all those writers and high virtues and traits like of compassion, forgivingness, surrender, sacrificing yourself to the higher goals, higher deeds. All the humanitarian pursuit can also be studied by the scrutinization of this heartline. We have also discussed that contrary to the claims of the majority of the palmists, this line originates from over here, close to the mount of the Jupiter and mount of the Saturn, and it terminates under little finger on the mount of the Mercury. And it is also very important to study the origin of the heartline because it tells about what motivates the desire in an individual to get into an emotional relationship. Because the foundation, the pedestal from where the heartline is originating. So what kind of energy is infusing the emotions, the inspiration? So whether it is the intensive and aggressive energy of the planet Mars, or whether it is the spiritual and righteous traits of the planet Jupiter, or whether it is the cold and kind of aloof qualities of the planet Saturn, which is infusing the emotions and feelings in the heartline. So that is the only reason why it is very important to study the origin of the heartline. So now we are going to start our discussion on the origin of the heartline on the mount of the Saturn. So very first thing which you people need to understand is, what does planet Saturn represent? So the chief attributes assigned to planet Saturn are: first, it represents hard work. It represents sobriety, wisdom. It also represents your capacity for planning and research. And in negative aspect, this planet also, represents pessimism, negative thinking, suicidal thoughts. Even the accidents are seen from an afflicted planet Saturn or the mount of the Saturn on your palm. The palmistry and astrology always goes hand in hand. When it comes to astrology, like the way I have already explained, the position, the placement of the planet Saturn in your astrological chart tells about all those areas in your life where you will get tested in this lifetime. So let's say if the placement of the Saturn is the third house, which represents your younger siblings, so your relationship and your terms with your siblings will get tested in this lifetime. Same ways, this is the same kind of role which even planet Saturn plays in palmistry as well. The planet Saturn, the middle finger and the mount of the Saturn, which is known as the balancing wheel of the hand. So this is the role of the planet Saturn to check whether all other planets are doing their job in a prescribed way or not, to infuse proper seriousness in them, so that the Jupiter would not make someone very ambitious. It will not make, whether a Mercurian person is not, in order to fulfill his, materialistic pursuit, is not becoming too shrewd in his approach in business. And, same ways, a Luna person, so this is a Luna portion. A Luna person is not becoming too imaginative. And, one more thing, one more symmetry of astrology and palmistry is that, like the way all other planets on our palm gets judged, so planet Jupiter gets judged on the basis of how risen this mount is, how full this mount is. Same is the way the mount of Mercury and the mount of Apollo gets judged. But when it comes to the mount of the Saturn, it is being exempted on the judgment parameter that it will get judged on the basis of fullness or risenness. This is a flat mount, and same is the way the kind of nature the planet Saturn carries. It is a cold, it is a very aloof kind of planet, and this is the kind of nature which it infuses in someone who is deeply in the influence of planet Saturn. So now coming to the part where we have to discuss what would remain to be the case when the heartline would originate from the mount of the Saturn. So the first case is when you'll find the heartline. So we are going to embrace the same kind of approach which we did at the time of studying the origin from the mount of the Jupiter and the mount of the inner Mars. So let's say, for example, this is the mount of Saturn. So what we are going to do is we are going to divide it in three equal worlds. So first is the Sattva world, second is the Rajas world, and third is the Tamas world. So what is going to happen is that when you will find the heartline to be originating deep on the Sattva world, so this is just going to infuse all those archetype qualities of the planet Saturn in someone's matters of the heart, how they are going to feel for others. So what is going to happen is that in all those hands where the heartline is originating from the Sattva world, these people would remain to be kind of little bit self-absorbed. they would face problem when it comes to empathizing other person's plight, or relating to other people's situation or what other person is going through. So that is the only reason when it comes to forming a profound deep relationship with these kind of people, they will face problem, because other people would not be able to relate to themselves on a deeper level, just because of this kind of bar which these people have set, because of their own giving priority to their own thinking and to their own feelings. So this is with the case when you'll find the heartline to be originating deep on the sattva world of the mount of the Saturn. So this is the world, this is going to tell about someone who will remain to be too self-absorbed. Next is when you'll find the heartline to be originating on the Rajas world. So what would happen is that these people in any case would remain to be very independent, but they will set their own terms, and they will, even in relationship, in the matters of the heart, affections, there would remain to be a tinge of materialism. So whenever it comes to forming any partnership, and even the relationship with their nearer and dearer ones, and even with their partners, they would just tend to evaluate it on the material terms. So how much profit is this relationship is going to bring into their life, or what kind of financial gain is this relationship is going to bring into their life, those would remain to be their benchmark, which would again create a hurdle in forming a harmonious and kind of very smooth relationship with people. So the first was self-absorbed, second was the person is little bit of selfish. Next is when you'll find the heartline to be originating from the tamas world. So this is the kind of case with majority of the palmists declare for the all other kind of formation, or wheresoever heartline is originating, whichsoever world. So the signification which has been written in majority of the books of palmistry is that heartline originating on the mount of the Saturn is going to make someone sensual, is going to make someone very sexual, which is not true. This is going to remain to be the case only when you'll find the heartline to be originating from the tamas world. So these people would remain to be too much inclined towards egocentric need of comfort and pleasure. In any case, these people would give preference to kind of sensual pleasures rather than forming a romantic bonds with people. And like the way I always say, any so ever prediction is always judged by looking other parallel basic modifiers as well. So let's say for example you have found this kind of formation, and along with that the mount of Venus is also risen. Mount of Venus is also aggravated by the presence of negative signs like crisscrossing lines or dot or mole. So then that is going to aggravate and confirm the possibility that this person is going to remain very sensual as his attitude and approach towards relationship. So, and one more thing, just because this line is getting closer to the headline, so this person would remain to be very determined in terms of the matters of the heart, but for his own selfish gains. This person would remain to be very demanding and would remain to be too much given to flattery. And I have also seen in my own research that whenever these people's emotions get aroused, they kind of do each and every single bit to win over their object of desire. But once they have win over that relationship, and very soon and very slowly and steadily they will start losing interest even in that relationship. So that is the case when you will find the heartline to be originating on the tamas world. Next is, let's say anytime you will find the heartline to be originating from the midpoint of the planet mount of the Saturn and the mount of the Jupiter. So let's say for example this is our mount of Saturn and this is our mount of Jupiter. So what is going to happen is that anywhere on this border the heartline is originating. So what does this represent? This tells about practical kind of approach in love. These people would not remain to be too much among those who have this have this habit of demonstrating their love in public, or not. These people would remain to be very foolishly sentimental. These people would remain to be very practical, just because they will have a blend of the wisdom of Saturn, and they will also have a blend of spirituality, faithfulness and loyalty of the planet Jupiter. So this is the ideal kind of formation for the heartline to have, heartline to originate. This point is also known as the common sense point. So these people would remain to be very deep and very profoundly in relationship. They will remain to be very practical in all matters of the heart, whether with their friends, whether with his or her loved partner. So in all matters of the heart and emotions and affection, they will have a balanced approach. Now let's say for example there are some unusual combinations which you also need to understand, which is, let's say for example any point of time you will find the And one more thing which I forgot to tell, and let's say along with that you will find the heartline to be originating from the midpoint, and along with that one branch going towards the middle of the Jupiter. So what we have is, we have the case that the heartline is originating from the midpoint of the mount of the Saturn and the mount of the Jupiter, and there is one branch which is going to the middle of the Jupiter. So this is the ideal combination, the perfect combination, where the person will have a, infusing the qualities of Jupiter, but not to the extent of becoming too ambitious, too egoistic, or too idealistic, and with a blend of the planet Saturn. So this is the kind of very blessed kind of combination which you can have for anyone's heartline to have. Next is the unusual combination which we have already started, which is, let's say for example, any point of time you'll find the origin of the heartline under the ring finger from the mount of the sun. So let's say something like this. So what does this tell? So very first thing is, why I'm saying this thing unusual is because it is very rare to find in people's palm. Second thing is, the length of the heartline is getting very shortened. So now what is going to happen is that, first thing is that these people would remain to be impulsive. That's one case. Second is, even their emotional overtures or their emotional outlet would remain to be going with too much of emotional highs and lows. And impulsiveness we have already discussed, and even the little bit of sensuality, same like the tamas world of the mount of the Saturn, would remain in these people's attitude as well. So this is when you will find the heartline to be originating on the tamasic world of the mount of the sun. So this was the mount of the sun, and you have spotted the heartline to be originating from here. And let's say the next combination is when you will find the complete or near absence of the heartline. So let's say for example, the heartline is not present on the palm. So what does this indicate? So this can indicate three possibilities. One is that the utter intensity of the intellect has taken over the sentiments to the point of blind stubbornness, irrationality, kind of ruthlessness, and this could also indicate that the person is given to too much of negative emotions, negative feeling. And the last is vulnerability of diseases to the physical organ heart. I have personally seen in the majority of the hands in my own research is that in all those cases, in majority of the times what I have seen is that where the heartline is missing, and we have already discussed that these people are very much vulnerable to ruthlessness, a negative feeling and negative emotions, and in those hands you will find this kind of formation of line to have. So this line is known as the girdle of Venus. So this line is also known as a parallel heartline or sister heartline, as it has been described by majority of the palmists. So what does this line represent? So the only thing which this line represent is, first of all, stored pent up nervous energy. Second is too much of the sensitivity. This is the kind of combination which you will find in the hands of majority of the alcoholics and all the druggists, all those people who get into drug abuse, just because they are this kind of storm of confusion and rebelliousness is happening in their mind, in their heart, that they are always on a lookout of some easy outlet for the release of their energy. So this is what this girdle of Venus represents. So we are going to have a separate and complete detailed discussion on this girdle of Venus at the right time. So this is the one case which you can spot when the heartline would remain to be completely absent. And one more thing, as we have discussed, that these people face kind of problem when it comes to forming one-on-one relationship with other fellow beings. But when it comes to these people, and when they take refuge in any kind of idol worship, let's say any kind of devotion, any kind of path of devotion, path of worship, embracing any Ishta Deva, these people do very good in that, and they do their worship to the level of such a great excellence that they become inspiration for other people to follow. So this is with the case when you'll find the complete or near absence of the heartline. Last is, let's say for example, you'll find the double kind of heartline formation on the palm. So what does this represent? This represents too much of the bombardment of the emotions, which kind of creates confusion in someone's life. So these people, when it comes to their relationship, with whether they're with their colleagues, whether with their partners, or even with all the causes which they are deeply committed to, they kind of remain always in this confusion and in the introspection mode, whether they are doing things right, whether they are doing things wrong, just because of this too much of the bombardment of the emotions, which always keep them confused. So this is with all the concept related to the origin of the heartline. I hope I made myself very clear in this video. In subsequent videos, we are going to discuss all other aspect and concept of the heartline. So for further more updates and notification on palmistry, please subscribe my channel and like my Facebook page. Thanks.